we see them all back at the marshal's office. And Ava calls Raylan and says, while this is all transpiring, that's who Raylan's on the phone with when Dewey Crowe's being driven away, is the prison. And Ava wants to meet him. This is where he tells her, yeah, sorry, Boyd already cooperated and didn't ask for your release, by the way. He wants a clean slate. Nobody knows what the hell that means, but he's not going to get it anyway. So, but more importantly, he didn't ask for your release. So we see, I think, the nugget of an idea starting to form in Raylan's brain here with Ava, and potentially, being able to utilize her in the future as a source. But it's not fully fleshed out yet, so we don't know. But okay, so let's talk about kind of the finale of this episode. Most of it takes place in the Marshal Service office in the federal building there. You've got two kind of streams going on. You've got the Boyd and Raylan stream, which we'll get to last, I think. And then you've got the Daryl, Wendy, Kendall, Vasquez sort of stream. And what's happening is they're trying to hang some charges on Daryl. It's not looking good for Vasquez says, yeah, we're not going to be able to hold him. And they're trying to hold him for as long as he can. But while they do that, Vasquez steps out. He and Raylan go up to talk to Mike the Hammer in his chambers, and Raylan has a plan. And Raylan's plan, essentially, is we're going to try Kendall as an adult. And when we do that, it will inspire Wendy Crowe to cooperate with us against her brother, Daryl Crowe. And that will also inspire Kendall to tell us the truth of what happened as well. At least that's the plan. And, Mike the Hammer is very clear with Raylan that, hey, once this happens, you can't unring this bell, right? The analogy he uses is once you fire this bullet, it doesn't go back in the barrel. Once you choose to charge him as an adult, he is charged as an adult. That's it. It's over. There's no going back from that. And I think that that's true. I don't know that much about criminal procedure in the federal system, especially. But I think that is true. Once you elect to try them as an adult, you get essentially one opportunity to make that choice. And you either try them as a juvenile or you try them as an adult. And once that decision is made, it's final. There's no going back on that decision. And typically you wouldn't see, this isn't officially a law minute, but we'll sort of kind of make it into a law 30 seconds. You wouldn't typically see a scenario where a 14-year-old boy would be tried as an adult. This would be the closest scenario to that, where they, assaulted a law enforcement officer, attempted murder of a law enforcement officer. The thing is, you would look at it in the context of what their other legal history was. Like, have they been arrested a bunch before? Are they a repeat offender? Is this something, are they a violent repeat offender or not? What have we done that hasn't worked so far? Is that, because you generally, at least most prosecutors, look at trying a juvenile as an adult as a last resort. It's reserved for the most sort of awful, cold-hearted, crimes, and typically mass crimes, right, that have many, many victims. So a school shooting or something like that is the sort of scenario where you'd see somebody being tried as an adult, not a solo action, especially given the circumstances of it all, not knowing who fired first, all of that stuff.
And as far as we know, I don't think Kendall even has a record. That was
right.
I think that was one of the things also.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what Daryl was hanging his hat on, is like, hey, look, they're going to keep this kid until he's 18 or whatever, but then he's going to get out. He's going to have a clean slate. It's not that bad for him because he doesn't have a record. He doesn't have the history. He doesn't have the interactions with law enforcement. Hell, the kid's in foster care, for goodness sake, right? Or had been in foster care. And so you think about that. that's an extenuating circumstance that would almost certainly mean that we wouldn't try him as an adult unless, he killed his parents and that's why he was in foster care. But so in most instances, the prosecutor is going to be restrained here. Now, in this instance, it's a strategy. It's a very dangerous strategy if you're Raylan and you're very concerned about Kendall, because you could lock him up for 50 years without even thinking about it, especially if it turns out he actually did what he said he did, right? There's a theory. Raylan has a theory that he didn't do it. But everything that's been told so far, and we haven't seen anything to the contrary either to suggest that it's not true. Everything we've seen so far suggests that Kendall maybe did it. We haven't seen who actually did it. And so this is a very dicey strategy for Raylan. And for somebody especially who cares about the kid. That's why earlier I said, his number one priority is getting Daryl Crowe for shooting Art. His number two priority is protecting Kendall. And if that number two priority gets in the way of the number one priority, well, sorry, Kendall, you're out of luck. Just like Ava, just like Boyd, just like everybody else. So, stand between Raylan and his man at this point. And I did want to comment on that conversation he had with Ava early on when he said he's the man who's number one on my list right now. And that reminded me so much of like a Western movie, like the guy rolls into town, the federal marshal or the, whatever, the sheriff or whatever. And he's talking to like the madam of the whorehouse or whatever, looking for a guy. That's what it felt. It felt like it was lifted from a saloon scene and put into a prison in Harlan, Kentucky. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, it shows you how harsh it would be. I mean, because what did they say there was a mandatory sentence for
mandatory minimum of, I think it was 50 to life.
Yeah. Jeez. For a crime that he may or may not have done.
Yeah. But he confessed.
He confessed.
Right.
He confessed
to thinking that he was going to be charged as a juvenile, right? I mean, that's the other thing. Like his confession, and there's nothing that would stop this from being used against him, right? That's the anything and everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you choose to waive that right, that's your own peril. That's why you don't talk to the cops, people. But yeah, I mean, even if he thought that he was going to be charged as a juvenile and his confession was obtained under false pretenses, even if they told him, hey, you know what, we're going to treat you as a juvenile, you'll be fine, just tell us what happened, they're allowed to lie to you. They are. It's 100% allowed. The cops can tell you anything you want. There's a great story from law school where they're interrogating a suspect. This one made it all the way to the Supreme Court. They're interrogating a suspect. And they hook him up to what they say is a lie detector. It's a copy machine. And they have the copy machine. So they have it so when you press the button, a piece of paper comes out and it'll say truth or lie on it.
Jeez.
And so they'll ask him a question. He'll give the answer. They'll push the button on the copy machine and the paper spits out. So they have the paper ordered in there to say truth, 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 lie when they ask him the question that they know he's going to lie about. Like, did you kill this person? So it spits out lie and the guy confesses. And the question was, can police do that? And they are absolutely allowed to do that. They are allowed to lie to you however much they want to get your confession. It's nuts. It's nuts.
And it also shows you, because they went back to Judge the Hammer, the Hammer judge, and it shows you how much of is tilted towards the criminal justice system is tilted towards basically the government or the state.
Yeah.
It's they're not interested in trying to find out the truth.
No. And that's why, almost everything plea bargains and when things do go to trial, they don't always win, right? Because when they're going to trial, it's because they're not sure. I don't want to get into the whole cop thing. I talk about it too much, so I'll leave that alone. But yeah, it's a very valuable reminder to, no matter what they promise, don't talk to the cops without your lawyer, because you could end up like Kendall here and be up shit creek, really. Because if you think about this, we know the way that the next episode ends, but if it didn't end that way, he could have been going to jail for the rest of his life for something he didn't even do.
For something he didn't even do.
Something his family put him up to admit to, right? That's crazy. And we get this great scene with Mike the Hammer here where he says, hey, you know what? You know how I got this reputation about Mike the Hammer, right? I told all the prosecutors to say I'm the toughest, baddest judge. That way I don't have to be the toughest, baddest judge.
Yeah.
And that's a really kind of interesting look into what good judging is, right? I mean, you look at that and you're like, okay, that's a good judge, right? That's a guy who he wants a reputation that he's a hard ass so that people respect him and that they have a healthy respect and fear for what he can do in his courtroom. But ultimately, he's not there to ruin lives. He's there to deliver justice, whatever that looks like, right? And no matter how flawed our justice system is, you look at that and you can admire sort of the idea that like I'm here to deliver justice, not to railroad people, not to screw people over.
Yeah. So now, just as a reminder, this is the same guy who doesn't wear clothes underneath his robe,
Speedo, and he carries a pistol.
Yep.
So, all right. And then that gets us to kind of our final moment. Boyd is at the Marshal Service, which, by the way, he's sitting at Raylan's desk and there's a headline in a newspaper behind him. Did you see that?
No, what was it?
It says white supremacist murders federal marshal in standoff, which I thought was interesting just because, of who Boyd is and who Raylan is. I thought that was a really cool kind of headline, but obviously it's a Ruby Ridge reference.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know why Raylan has a Ruby Ridge headline hanging in his cube at work, because that would have happened. I mean, that would have happened like years before he was even in the Marshal Service, I would think.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't Marshals either. I think it was like, I want to say it was like ATF or something like that. It wasn't, like I don't think the Marshals were involved at all.
I think they were, because I think they were there to serve a federal warrant.
Oh, really?
I think that a marshal did get killed during the standoff at Ruby Ridge. I'm pretty sure. So,
there is a Netflix, or not Netflix, like a continuation of what happened from Waco.
Mm-hmm. I saw something. I saw that. It was on my Amazon thing or whatever. I don't remember where it is, but yeah, I saw that there was some sort of documentary or film about what happened after Waco.
Well, there was maybe a couple of years ago, there was something about Waco, and then there's like this new, like it had the guy from Friday Night Lights and some other people. It was actually pretty good considering, like everybody says it, like, the feds sort of whitewashed and evidence went missing and all this other stuff. But there's a continuation of it, and it's also a multi-part series, and it's called Waco: The Aftermath. Mm-hmm. And I mean, since we're talking about things like that, I mean, it's supposed to be, it has some of the same actors too. For this new
okay.
Let me see.
So it's like a dramatized accounting, but
yes,
okay. So not a documentary. So that's cool. Yeah, I've listened to a bunch of podcasts about cults and about that sort of thing, and there's a couple of really good ones on Waco. If you get a chance to listen to those, they're really good, and it's really, I mean, if you look back on it and objectively look at it, and you're like, man, this happened in America.
It's great. I mean, and there is like pretty much like just evidence of like just a cover up of just mass, like the government just like really either they fucked up or or it was done on purpose. But you're talking about like dozens of Americans who got murdered by dying by being burned alive. It's
some of them innocent people, right? I mean, people who weren't accused of any crime.
Children.
There were children there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's particularly heartbreaking to hear the accounts of that day when they came. It's from the people who were there. It's rough. Not just the Branch Davidians, the feds as well. They're just as fucked up from all that. So yeah. All right. So, but Boyd's there. He's waiting to get his phone back, right? He wants to get his phone back, and he wants to know what all this action happening with Daryl Crowe means to him. And Raylan explains to him, hey, it doesn't mean anything for you, Boyd, because we didn't get what we wanted, so you don't get anything. And I have a clip of that, and we'll talk a little bit about this after it's over, because there's a couple things that happen here.
Oh, come on, man. Give me my phone.
Get out of my way, boy.
Hey, I helped you out, Raylan. Now, I want to know where we stand on our deal.
You want to know where we stand? Let me tell you.
Tell me.
You said you'd help us get him. You didn't get him. So we'll be proceeding to convene a grand jury, bring charges against you as soon as possible.
Are you back to that foul bullshit?
Bullshit? There it is. Thick with the names of the suffering and the dead.